Russia-Ukraine news. Putin assured the African summit that Russia would do everything in its power to prevent a food shortage. Thursday, Russian President Vladimir Putin assured the leaders and officials of most African countries that despite worries that Russia's withdrawal from a deal allowing grain shipments from Ukraine will cause shortages and price spikes, his country is making full efforts to avert a global food crisis. He made the remarks at the start of a two-day Russia-Africa summit, where attendance was significantly lower than at the previous summit in 2019. The humanitarian aid that our country provides to other nations in need will continue. We want to help create a more equitable method of distribution of wealth. We are making every effort to prevent a worldwide food shortage, Putin said. Since we anticipate another record harvest this year, I stand by my previous statement that our country can replace Ukrainian grain, both commercially and as grant aid to the neediest African countries. An agreement reached between Russia and Ukraine a year ago, brokered by the United Nations and Turkey, allowed 3 Ukrainian Black Sea ports to reopen after being closed due to Russia-Ukraine fighting and guaranteed that ships entering the ports would not be attacked. This month, Russia decided not to renew the pact because it was causing delays in the country's exports. The grain supply comes largely from Russia and Ukraine. Key to Putin's stated goal of using the summit to strengthen ties with a continent of 1.3 billion people who are increasingly assertive on the global stage is the promise of Russian food exports to Africa. Putin also proposed a common information space in Russia and Africa, within which objective, unbiased information about events taking place in the world will be broadcast to Russian and African audiences. This would include increased enrollment of African students at Russian universities and the opening of Russian state news media bureaus in many African countries. When it comes to General Assembly resolutions condemning Russia's actions in Ukraine, the 54 African nations that make up the largest voting bloc have been more divided than any other region. This is the second summit between the two countries since 2019. Due to what the Kremlin claims was crude Western pressure to discourage African nations from participating, the number of heads of state attending has decreased from 43 to 17. While only 17 heads of state are in attendance, Yuri Ushakov, Putin's foreign affairs advisor, said that 32 additional African countries are represented by high-ranking officials or ambassadors. The fate of the Wagner mercenary group, led by Yevgeny Prigozhin and rebelling briefly against Russia's top military leadership last month, is also likely to be discussed alongside grain. Countries like Sudan and Mali, who hire Wagner's mercenary group in exchange for resources like gold, have a vested interest in the mercenaries' future. Prigozhin and other Russian officials have confirmed that the company will maintain its presence in the African market. Also on the agenda is a discussion of a peace proposal for Ukraine that has been pursued by African leaders.